Hello guys, Dominic again here with another video. Today I'm going to be describing free will as I have come to understand it. Now, free will is something that we do have despite the materialist worldview, but it's not really, I think, what people think it is, but at the same time it is. It ultimately boils down to making choices. But free will exists within this duality that it navigates between order and chaos. Essentially, there are three components to free will. All of these components exist simultaneously. These components are chaos, order, and the will, existing in unison, providing the framework for a meaningful experience. Chaos provides the potential, order provides the structure, and the will provides the ability to choose from the limitless potential within existence. Therefore, the will is that which navigates between the randomness of chaos and the determinism of order, bridging duality into union. To understand this framework, we will look at and synthesize the works of Parmenides to understand potential of existence, Arthur Schopenhauer to understand the will's place in existence, and Manly P. Hall to understand how natural law provides order and coherency for a valued life. And these aren't the only three thinkers we can look to, as what I'm going to describe is not just limited to what I'm saying or what these three people are saying. There's many others who will agree with at least one component of free will. But the Vesica Piscis here on the right, which is what this picture depicts, is a perfect example of what free will is and how it bridges duality together into one sacred union of experience. On one side you have order, on one side you have chaos, and between them sits the will, which through voluntary consent brings these things together, birthing life. The Vesica Piscis is, of course, the womb where life originates from. And it originates when the will bridges these forces together into one. Parmenides says, one path only is left for us to speak of, namely, that is. In it are many tokens than what is. It is uncreated and indestructible, alone, complete, immovable, and without end. Nor was it ever, nor will it be. For now it is all at once, a continuous one. For what kind of origin for it will you look for? In what way and from what source could it have drawn its increase? I shall not let thee nor think that it came from what is not. For it can neither be thought nor uttered that what is not. And if it came from nothing, what need could have made it arise later rather than sooner? Therefore, must it either be altogether or be not at all. Nor will the force of truth suffer aught to arise besides itself from that which in any way is. Being is complete and contains all things. Therefore, that which is not literally does not exist, because that which is not a part of being would imply being is incomplete. This is why you cannot think of nothing, because there is no nothing. everything exists within being. So, to understand Parmenides' being, it is essentially everything all at once in a continuous moment. Parmenides describes existence as being static, changeless, eternal, and in a state where it is at peace with itself. It is a universe which knows itself and does not compromise its authenticity for anything. Although Parmenides' beings represents the chaos within this framework, there is a coherent structure to the chaos, and being composes both the will and the logos. Okay, so being is one component of this thing, and being is everything at once. And because it's everything at once, the will and the forces of order, which is natural law, are contained within being. But to understand free will's place within being, we have to separate them. There's no other way, I think, we could really grasp it. We have to separate them. To truly understand being, we must recognize the static nature of being is inherent principles which are inseparable from the intelligent will. And I will continuously refer to God throughout this presentation as the intelligent will, and I will eventually explain why. But God, or the intelligent will, is the ultimate will from which all individuations of it arise. The highest of these principles are expression of the self and bearing responsibilities for the way the self expresses itself. This means that the sovereignty the intelligent will has for itself is given to each individual that comes from the intelligent will. Therefore, what we think of as free will is a limited, finite expression in the form of a fractal of the intelligent will, which lives through each one of us as individuals. Under the concept of Parmenides' being, the static component is the principles which allows the intelligent will to know and understand itself in a way so that the experiences it has as limited individuals are valuable. So essentially, being, or the will, wants to experience all the things that are happening at once through limited, finite expressions of itself, because this is ultimately the best way that it can express uniqueness. And this uniqueness is a part of eternity. It's a part of being. And therefore, it's inseparable from being. The principles of the will give each piece of the moment meaning. This is because within each moment, or within each piece of the eternal moment, exists individuals deciding for themselves how to express themselves within the objective reality they find themselves. And this is the principles of the intelligent will. Sovereign expression. So Parmenides does represent the chaos in this framework. So Parmenides' being is essentially a 4D block universe. However, there's no reason to think that 4D is the end-all be-all. There's more than likely many spatial dimensions, and each of them, I would imagine, experiences time differently. Being is essentially everything that's ever happened, everything that is currently happening, everything that will ever happen and every possibility that could have happened, all happening in one eternal moment. In our lives as humans, we see these things existing as opportunities from the things, from the opportunities of which we make our choices. So let me give you an example, okay? Within our lives, we could have the potential to be, if we're going to go down a job path, we could do some sort of STEM work. We could do some blue collar work. We could try and be a business executive. We may even reject that and go down the path of priesthood. The point is, all of these possibilities exist simultaneously until you make the choice. Once you make the choice, then you live with that decision. But all of these possibilities exist simultaneously within being. This is what it means for all things to exist at once. It's not just what happened, and it's not just what's happening. It's everything that could have possibly happened as well. Typically, an individual is going to be presented many choices throughout their lives, which lead to different outcomes which will impact their lives. All of these possibilities that an individual can possibly choose exist simultaneously and eternally, regardless of if they make that choice or not. Parmenides says, that which is that which exists, and that which is not cannot exist, essentially, as we read in his previous quotes. This means that everything that could have happened exists somewhere, or else it would not have even been possible for it to be or exist in the first place. Parmenides adds that we cannot even think of that which does not exist, implying that every word that flows through our mind has a foundation in existence. So words are describing objective truths about reality. This is the purpose of language, to communicate our knowledge of the world to each other so that we can coordinate with each other and harmonize to live lives of meaning and responsibility and coexistence, essentially. But words are also subjective, as in each culture or each different group of people comes up with their own unique way to describe the objective reality. This doesn't mean that there is no objective reality. It means that each individual is unique. And this is the whole purpose of the intelligent will, to create unique individuals to experience the vast sea of potential so that they can make their own choices in life. Because when unique individuals are making choices in alignment with the principles of the eternal spirits, all possibilities become real. Therefore, chaos is the limitless potential which allows life to craft for itself that which it desires out of the limitless possibilities which exist simultaneously. The question is, which of these possibilities are we going to choose? And this is what the symbol, the chaos symbol, represents. The eightfold path. We can go any direction we choose within the material world. It's just some of those directions are better than others, but the choice is all ours. As Arthur Schopenhauer says in one of his quotes, if you want a safe compass to guide you through life and to banish all doubt as to the right way of looking at it, you cannot do better than to accustom yourself to regard this world as a penitentiary. If you accustom yourself to this view of life, you will regulate your expectations accordingly and cease to look upon all its disagreeable incidents, great and small, its sufferings, its worries, its misery, as anything unusual or irregular. Nay, you will find that everything is as it should be. In a world where each of us pays the penalty of existence in his own peculiar way. So the key there is that we all experience existence in our own peculiar way. And to an extent, we are slaves to the will. But this is because the will seeks out the most desirable outcome for itself as we manifest. This doesn't mean that we have no free will, but we do have the ability to go against the most desirable outcome. Arthur Schopenhauer uses the word penitentiary because he sees us as slaves of the will. However, he acknowledges the fact that each one of us is an individual experiencing the objective world in a unique way. So, Schopenhauer describes the will as an insatiable hunger, which seeks to consume itself at all levels of existence. The will is the life force which wants to experience potential. There are roosters crowing. I cannot do anything about the roosters if they're picking up on the mic. To Schopenhauer, it did this mechanistically, unintelligibly, wanting to tear itself apart so that it could feel some sort of life. It's important to note that the will is both experiencing the predator and the prey simultaneously. To Schopenhauer, saying no to the will was the solution to avoid this insatiable hunger and lust of self-destruction. Schopenhauer also thought individuals did not have free will because individuals could not determine what they want. While he is mostly correct, the will, in order to truly experience potential, must limit itself through individuals that exist egoically within potential, forgetting that they are attached to the will of life and therefore enact the will to live. So what that means is if people realized that they were eternal beings, we would not care what happens in this world. Our ego is what attaches us to this world, and its purpose is to make sure that we do what is necessary to live in the world. It's not that the will is just this insatiable hunger that wants to destroy itself. What Schopenhauer is describing is an individual who has attached themselves to a will which seeks identity in the materialistic comforts of the world. They don't understand that they have eternal life, so they want to live in this world as comfortably as they can. But this creates suffering, as most people's lifestyles in the modern day definitely put a great deal of strain on and stress on the environment around them. Essentially, it's unsustainable. While he is mostly correct, the will, in order to truly... Oh, I already read that. This means that we individuals do not exist in a monistic hive mind, for that would defeat the will's whole purpose to truly experience potential. Since we are individual fractals of the eternal will, and time exists as an eternal moment, essentially it's an illusion, we retain our individuality eternally. We are inseparable from eternity, just as the will, which divided itself to make us, is inseparable from eternity. When we die, or if there comes to some point in existence where humanity all collectively ascends, we're not going to collapse into this one, monad where, now we've all just become one and we're all one consciousness. We're individuals now, and we will be individuals for the eternal moments. That means forever. So, what is free will? Free will is the ability to navigate the limitless sea of potential and create your own image from all the possibilities which exist. It is the ability to choose that which we desire most from the opportunities that we are presented with in our life. Free will has limitations such as the form which it inhabits, and more importantly, the imagination of the free will sovereign being. Now, limited forms are what define freedom. The fact that we exist as a human who needs to do things like eat, who needs to do things like spend a long time traveling places if we want to get anywhere, even though now we've made technology to make the distance significantly shorter. This is what defines freedom, because limited forms remind the individuals that they are similar enough to coexist. These limitations are what give our choices more impact had we not had them. They define freedom since they give species which exist in large numbers commonalities so that respect can be built. As Schopenhauer says, an individual cannot desire what they will. And this is because the chaos of potential has an order to it. This order is that certain possibilities and outcomes are more desirable than others. For example, no one wants to be shelterless. Generally, individuals want security in their life because if you don't have shelter, you're exposed to far more hardships than is necessary. No one wills that they be homeless for good reason because it's an undesirable outcome. This means we must use our free will to choose from the possibilities which are actually good for us, and not just the ones we think are good for us, but the choices are all ours. And this is where I think people get tripped up with free will. It's the fact that amongst the infinite sea of possibilities, there exist some possibilities which are better and more desirable than others because they actually generate good and positive effects or desirable effects and outcomes in a person's life. And there are some that are not so desirable because they generate bad outcomes or undesirable outcomes that people want to avoid in their life, and for good reason. Generally, most people don't want to be living on the streets because of the reasons I said. You're just exposed to far more danger than you would be if you weren't living on the street. And this leads to the next part of the presentation, which is the order and natural law section. And this is a quote by Manly P. Hall, who says, "Bookishness may lead to loneliness, and scholarship may end in a battle of beliefs. But the wise man gazing off into space sees not an emptiness, but a space full of life and law." And life, truth, and law are all interconnected because they're all a part of being. These are the things that matter within being. And also, he's mentioning loneliness here because once an individual remembers that they are an eternal being, part of this interconnected tapestry of experience, loneliness disappears. Manly P. Hall's order is essentially natural law. Natural law is a set of immutable conditions, meaning they never change, which rules free will. Manly P. Hall describes it as the consequences of our actions. It is the weight in the world which ensures that our lives have meaning. Hall mostly describes it in a moral sense. Natural law is what rules the consequences of behavior, ensuring that the principles of the intelligent will are functioning everywhere within existence. Hall has stated as well It ultimately comes down to allowing each individual the respect they deserve to live their life unhindered from others. This is the fundamental moral principle of the intelligent will, that the sovereignty of each being is to be respected, and if they are not, consequences will flow from the logos, which is natural law, which fairly impacts the beings who choose to manifest such things in their lives. Natural law, however, is far beyond the moral realm and provides the very structure of our reality, which without these principles would have no meaningful experience at all. So, life within natural law, within this existence, is all interconnected. All of our consequences impact the objective world, or I should say, all of our actions impact the objective world through consequences, which not only affect our life, but people around us as well. And we are also impacted by what they are doing in the world. It basically rewards our actions with 100% consistency, meaning that it judges everyone fairly, it views our lives objectively through the lens of principles. And if we deviate from these principles, we're going to generate bad consequences. Essentially, it is the phrase, we reap what we sow. And this picture here on the right is the spider grandmother or the spider woman of Native American mythology, who is responsible in that mythos for weaving together the fates of men. What it shows is that we're all part of an interconnected web of experience, and we all add to it. And also, this also goes back to what I was saying earlier. Each thread that we carve exists eternally, meaning that the individual never goes away, because each thread is its own. And if you take away a thread from the eternal being, you essentially have no eternal being anymore, because you've taken away from it. It's no longer complete. So, what is natural law beyond the moral sense? The order of natural law ensures that reality does not drown itself. It is the force which ensures that the vast ocean of potential does not overpower the limited expressions of free will. It guarantees and protects individual expressions of the intelligent will by maintaining consistency in their experience. This means that our actions matter. This means that because I'm a human today, I will remain a human today. We don't live in a chaotic soup universe where one moment you're a human being, the next you're a goldfish, the next you're a bird in the sky, the next you're the sky itself, and then the next you're the ocean. This would be a chaotic, random universe which we do not experience. This is also what the law of identity is expressing, is that if you're a person, you're going to be a person for your entire life. And there's nothing you can do to change that. This is the structure and flow to our experience here, which is coherent. Without this coherency, our actions and choices would have no weight and no meaning. Therefore, the intelligent will and individual expressions of it would have nothing to reflect on after they've lived their finite life. And if you look to the picture on the right, this is Mott weighing the heart against the feather on the scales of Mott, although there is no heart there. What this is a higher force represented by Mott order who is reflecting on your life. So this is literally ingrained in Egyptian mythology, that what we do here matters and it will be reflected upon by a higher power. What happens today Oh, wait. Therefore, the intelligent will. Oh, wait. No, I was right. My bad. What happens today matters because our actions are going to cause effects in the objective world and all free beings who inhabit it. Like I said, guys, we're affected by other people's actions. Our actions affect other people. Natural law ensures that the potential which is manifested through the choices of the will and all its manifestations collapse into a single picture of experience that the intelligent will looks at and recognizes. And so that we can look back at our lives and recognize the picture we crafted for ourselves based off of our choices as individuals. So, again, guys, it's all about having an experience that means something so that the intelligent will and your eternal self can both test its principles and develop principles. The intelligent will is testing its principles through us finite mortals, and we are developing principles through the choices we make in our lives, through the things we support, through the things we reject, through the things that we say, these sorts of things. And this is what's going to be reflected upon, as the Egyptians say, when our heart is weighed against the scales of the feather on the scales of Mot. So now I'm going to explain what I mean by the intelligent will, because I've used that word a lot to explain God. But first, here's a quote. I don't know who this is, Joey Lawson, but this is a great quote. The duality of one is the unity of two. And this is what the will does, is it bridges duality together voluntarily. So what is the intelligent will? The intelligent will is God, or the eternal spirit. I have been calling it the intelligent will because it has the desire to express itself. It is the will, as Schopenhauer describes it, the will to live. This means that behind everything, there is a force, or there is an intelligence, which actively wants to express itself and live within the vastness of being. And in order to do that, it must wear a mask, which are basically individual expressions of free will, stemming from the intelligent will. In order to truly wear that mask, it must give the expressions of free will the same sovereignty that it itself has, just in a more limited way. And again, guys, the limitations are what define the form. Because through limitations such as imagination and knowledge and even our physical form, can the intelligent will truly experience everything. It can't really experience everything if it never experiences limitations. So the reason I call it the intelligent will is because the will, which is the force that wants to live, actively bridges duality together in sacred union. It bridges together order and chaos. The word intelligent, when broken in half phonetically, implies duality. But when put together, is the harmony of duality. The first half of the word is intel, or intellect, which implies the logical or structured order of things. In the macrocosm, this is natural law. And gent, the generative component of things, represents the potential of chaos of being. In the macrocosm, this is what is possible. Therefore, when I'm referring to the intelligent will, I am referring to that which bridges together duality in the macrocosm. And we human beings, here in the microcosm, walk the path between order and chaos, making the ultimate choice as to whether or not we're going to balance these forces in a similar way that the intelligent will does. So what does that mean that we humans walk between order and chaos? That means that within this realm exists countless possibilities that we make, and as we make these possibilities, they impact the objective world around us in a coherent and meaningful way. That's how we bridge together duality. We analyze the possibilities and choices that we can make in our lives, and we make the one that seems the most orderful and the most desirable. And if we look to this picture here on the right, it is basically the will expressing itself through all things. You see the seed of life in the background, the fact that we all come from the same thing, and there's a tree also represented by two people hugging, and the birds on the tree and the leaves on the tree. It all comes from one thing. It all comes from one will. And that will is that which bridges together the forces of chaos and order into sacred union and experience. And guess what, guys? This is also biblically correct. It's right there in the first three verses of the Bible explain exactly what I'm talking about. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Duality. The only thing is, God's not creating anything. Certainly not ex nihilo. All God is doing is taking from what has existed eternally and creating separation in it. But this separation is bound together. Well, I'm going to get to what it's bound together by, but it's not creating anything ex nihilo where God is saying, poof, now this exists and it came from nothing. All of being is eternal, and it always was. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and the darkness was upon the face of the earth. And the Spirit moved upon the faces of the water. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And guys, that's exactly what I'm explaining here. The water, or the earth, this is the realm of potential. The Spirit, which moved upon the face of the deep. This is the will. And when God said, let there be light, or the word, this is the logos, which follows the Spirit. It came to the potential through the Spirit. This is what God is. God is the Spirit which bridges together these forces of duality into sacred union. And it's all right there in Genesis, the first 3 verses. The water, which is the potential and chaos, the Spirit, which is the will, and the word or the light, which is the order, coming to the potential through the Spirit. Notice how the Spirit is mentioned first. The Spirit is the will which the voice follows. So I also mentioned that we human beings are limited. And human beings are essentially as limited as an artist. As individual fractals of the eternal will, we manifest as limited expressions and live between order and chaos. The chaos is the world where potential arises through limitless forms, and the order are the laws, seen and unseen, physical and non-physical, which grant meaning to the world. Just like the intelligent will, we individuals can bridge these dualistic forces in our finite living days to create a still image that is our life. The potential is like a canvas from which anything can emerge. And the order is the materials you use to craft the image you want. The force behind crafting this image is your free will, determining where to place your tools to best craft the image you want, how to stroke your brush, what color to use, what material for the paint you're using, etc. The possibilities when it comes to creating something on the canvas from existing paint materials or whatever, maybe you're not even using paint, is literally limitless. Maybe you aren't even making a painting, but a sculpture. This is how unique we are. Maybe someone over here is making a painting and someone over here is making a sculpture. It doesn't make someone better or more important than the other. It just makes each individual unique and in their own way beautiful. The point is, once it's all said and done, your life exists as a still image within eternity, and it's based off of the choices that you made in your life each moment that you as an individual creates for yourself. It is a unique picture that each person creates for themselves. The tools and the material an artist uses typically are universal, though they do vary from artist to artist. So if you want to sculpt, you have to use a chisel and a hammer. Or if you want to paint, you have to use a brush. Or maybe if you're a finger painter, you could finger paint. But the point is that we still have to use tools to craft what we want on the blank canvas or the blank marble. What makes the artist is how they use their tools, and what makes an individual is how well they navigate between the forces of order and chaos. We have the potential to be anything, making for ourselves choices amongst the opportunities that come about us in our life. And the order is what allows those choices to leave a meaningful and impactful mark in the objective world that we all subjectively experience. So now I'm going to explain what time is in this as it relates to free will. And as Albert Einstein said, I'm going to have to agree with him, time is just something we invented to make motion simple. Or seem simple. So what is time? If all possibilities exist simultaneously in one moment, and we are choosing from these possibilities, then what is time and how does it affect free will? The eternal moment is so large, we limited expressions of the intelligent will can only experience it bit by bit. Therefore, it's not accurate to think of time as a natural mechanism which allows movement and progress as it seems. Instead, time is a set of coordinates within being that we navigate. It is up to us individual expressions to decide where on the map we want to navigate based off of our actions within the limited coordinates that we can experience based off of our material and finite self. This means that while we don't get to choose where in these coordinates we live, because human beings only live about 100 years if we're lucky, it does mean that within those 100 years, we get to select from the opportunities that come about us in our lives and make choices which ultimately collapses the potential around us into one single and coherent experience. So you can think of it like a movie or a book. In order for us to watch a book or watch a movie or read a book, we have to watch the movie frame by frame. We have to read the book word by word. But when it's all said and done, it was just one book or one story, or it was all one movie or one motion picture. The only way we can understand it is to watch it bit by bit. And this is a part of the limitation of an individual of the intelligent will. The intelligent will, however, sees everything at once. It doesn't have these limitations like we do. And can look to the image here. I think it explains it pretty well how we can navigate time. You can look to the point where you're born and where you die, and then there's a green line which goes between them. So as you're alive, you are free to draw this line however you want. You can go wherever opportunity allows you to go, wherever the limitations of your imagination and your physical self allow you to do. But you only exist within a specific set of coordinates. And once you reach the end of that coordinates, you die. And if you try to go before, well, you can't really, because you need to be born in order to experience the finite material world. It's not healthy to get hung up in the fact that we're stuck in all this sea of possibilities. What we need to acknowledge is the fact that from these possibilities, we can collapse them into our own experience that means something. And based off of the choices you make in your life, it might hasten your death as well. So that there's another impact that the choices might have on you, let alone the choices you make having an impact on the objective world. Because it doesn't matter how insignificant you might think you are, you do matter in the grand scheme of things. Being contains everything, and that includes you. And if you were removed from eternity, it would no longer be eternal. What is the purpose? Why would the intelligent will or God put itself in these situations of suffering by experiencing things like ignorance, pain, and death? The intelligent will is a force which bridges duality together through its inherent principles. Its principles revolve around the expression of itself in the way it sees fit. It recognizes itself as a sovereign living thing which interacts with itself or interacts with the possibilities within being in profound ways. This means that in order for its principles to be proven, it must experience a limited individual fractal of itself, and if these fractals of itself remember and adhere to its principles through ignorance, through death, then the principles are proven. God is almost like a scientist, except instead of wanting to control that which it does not understand, it wants to experience that which it does not understand. And through experiencing a limited version of itself, it can truly remember the values of its principles. So God is seeking meaning through us individuals experiencing God. That means that right now in this moment, the whole world around you is God because it exists within being and the will is ever present. But it also means that God is experiencing the world through you. It's essentially this work of self-reflection and truly learning itself, because in order for God to be all-knowing, God must experience all things. So, what does this ultimately mean? It means that every single thing that exists is God experiencing itself from a different vantage point. The saying, harming others is harming me, is recognized in many spiritual traditions who understand this truth, and this is at the crux of God's principles. Harming others is harming God. The ultimate choice that we humans must make is determining whether or not we will respect other beings' ability to live in the world the way they see fit, the same way we respect our own ability to do so. Free will is at the center of being, and within being are all possibilities. For these possibilities to truly manifest in nuanced and novel ways, respect of all living things must be developed. Therefore, the true test of the individual existing as free will is whether or not we're going to align with the principles of the intelligent will. And the key to remembering this, the key to aligning and remembering these principles is love. Love is ultimately what respect is all about. Love is recognizing that you are your neighbor and your neighbor is you. It's recognizing that you're a part of the world and the world is a part of you. And as Merriam-Webster defines love, it's basically an extremely good disposition towards all things all the time. This means that you are content with who you are as an individual, and you are expressing yourself the best way you know how, while simultaneously allowing other individuals to express their own free will. These are the principles that we can choose to align to or not. When we respect the sovereignty of other beings, the consequences generate freedom. But when we disrespect the sovereignty of other beings, the consequences manifest as slavery. And this is because when we truly disrespect other beings by causing harm unto them, we are trying to take something from them that we think is going to fill some sort of void within ourself. But it is impossible to take from others and complete yourself. The only way one can truly fill a void if they have a desire to take from others is to look within themselves and recognize that they aren't doing or living a life they truly desire. When you disrespect the sovereignty of other beings, you are trying to force them to become something they're not, which is an impossible task, as you are creating unnecessary interference within being. Being is already everything that could possibly exist and everything that does exist in one moment. You cannot force that to become something else because it already is everything. And when you're trying to force someone to go against their own will, you are trying to force them to become something they're not. Therefore, they're living an inauthentic life, which is a life of falsity. And when you do this, you are ultimately causing suffering to yourself, because the being that you think you're causing suffering to, who you think is separate from yourself, is ultimately you in another form. You cannot force beings to become that which they are not. And here's a picture on the right with a dog and a kitty cat respecting each other and realizing that they are one in a different form. It almost looks like, at least as much as animals can. It says, ego is not important in a life, but self-respect is most important in life. Because when you respect yourself and when you love yourself, then you can learn to respect and love others. And that's my presentation on free will. It exists in three components: the chaos, which is potential and possibility; the order, which is what adds coherency to the chaos; and the will, which is the ability to make choices from the sea of potential in a world where your choices matter. And that's ultimately what free will is all about. And that's my presentation, guys. If you disagreed, let me know. If you liked it, well, then I appreciate it. And I'll see you guys again.